we would like to put things in context. And my colleague and I, Mr. Norville, who's our project manager, he's in charge of the project management unit, he will be giving you some idea as to what is affecting WASCO generally, and then we will move into the questions for the rest of our management team, so you could have a more holistic view of what's happening, why it's happening, and what it is we're doing to remedy the situation. So again, thank you for coming. And Mr. Norville?
Okay, so we have a presentation here today which we just want to go through to just give, as Stephen said, an overview of some of the issues that WASCO is currently faced with. And our major issue right now relates to the effects of climate change. Okay, so for those who wouldn't know, St. Lucia and our water supply is primarily, in fact, solely dependent on rainfall, because all our water is surface water, which comes from rivers and streams and springs. Now, because of this, we are heavily reliant on weather conditions to heavily reliant on weather conditions for our distribution of water to the public. And even in the rainy season, we are affected by frequent water shortages. Now, climate change disrupts the water cycle, and it affects WASCO's ability to provide a steady supply. And we recognize that our unpredictable water supply is frustrating for our customers, and it is frustrating for the organization as well, but it's something that is outside of our control. And we would like to point out that while we are responsible for the distribution and treatment of water, the government, the businesses, and the citizens also have a role to play in water security. Okay, now because of climate change, what we find is that there are longer dry seasons which lower the levels in the rivers. So there's a reduced flow and reduced availability of water for us to supply. Then we also have to look at the fact that because of our system, which is heavily reliant on rivers, things like pollution also affect our water supply. So when you have things like illegal dumping of debris and garbage in rivers, that affects us as well. Then you have agricultural runoff when you have fertilizers and it gets washed into the river. Again, that's a problem for us. Then you have deforestation, which causes sedimentation of the rivers and causes additional debris to go into our water systems. That again is a challenge which we are faced with. Then we have over abstraction because of the increased demand, which depletes our groundwater faster than it can be replenished. And then of course we have illegal abstraction. So that's when you have persons who abstract from rivers illegally, which reduces the available water for us to supply to the customers. Okay, now we spoke about the water cycle and how climate change affects it. As I mentioned, we have longer dry seasons, which means that there is less rainfall and lower river levels. Then in the rainy season, you find that what we get are flash rain events. So they're short but very intense rainfall events, which lead to flooding. So that happens in mostly the urban areas. But in the more rural areas, what you find is that there's sedimentation of our rivers and the water is effectively dirty and makes it more difficult for us to treat. Then you have the increased temperatures. So what you would have, I mean, everyone can tell it's definitely getting hotter by the day. So what you find is that with those increased temperatures, there's more evaporation of water, which lowers the amount of water available in the rivers, but at the same time, our water demand, because you have persons who want to take more frequent showers, longer showers, they want to drink more water, so there's an increased demand for water on a whole. So we have reducing the amount of water which is available, but then you have an increase in the demand for water at the same time. So that's also an issue for us. Then you have the more extreme and frequent extreme weather events such as hurricanes and storms. And what that does is that it causes damage to our infrastructure, so to our pipes and other critical infrastructure, pumps, etc. So that also is an issue for us. Now, you might say that in the rainy season, there should be more water available, so why is there a difficulty? But we'd like to point out that more rain does not necessarily mean that there is more water available to our consumers. I would have mentioned the issues with flooding and soil erosion, which makes it more difficult for us to treat. So it will take some time where we have to have things more stable at our treatment plants, because of course safety to our consumers is very important, and we do not want to distribute water that is not of the quality required. And I would have mentioned the infrastructure damage. As you know, when you have hurricanes, yes, you want to go out there and fix damages, etc. But we also are concerned about our safety of our workers and the public. So we're not just going to go out in the middle of a hurricane because we heard a pipe burst. So we have there are protocols in place that we have to follow. So while we are cognizant of the fact that our consumers need water, but we also have to do it in a manner that is safe for our staff as well, and also the public. Now, in the dry season, as I also said, you have water shortages because of the lack of rainfall, because that is what we depend on to supply our consumers. So less rainfall, it means that the rivers and our reservoirs dry up much faster, and the increase in evaporation reduces on the availability of water. Now, what are we currently faced with? It's no secret that our infrastructure is quite aged, and that means that there are a number of leaks on our line, just because the infrastructure, some of it has been in operation longer than its intended design period. Then you have to look at the increase of developments throughout the country. We have a growing population, and our tourism sector is quite booming right now. So there is also an increased pressure on WASCO to supply both our business customers and also the tourism sector. So that also puts a strain on our water resources. And again, I have to re-emphasize that climate change is making this even more difficult for us to cope with. So we just also want to re-emphasize that our water supply is not an infinite water supply, and it takes more than just WASCO to be able to ensure water security, but we also need our customers to play a part in that as well. Now, you may ask, what is WASCO doing to assist in these challenges? Well, for one, we are going through the process of replacing old pipes and aged infrastructure to reduce on the amount of leakage on the system, and also to provide additional water storage capacity where possible, to ensure that even when there is downtime, there is some water available for us to provide to our customers. We're also dealing with the water treatment aspect by investing in new infrastructure that can handle higher sediment loads. So even when you have very turbid water with sediment in it, we're still able to provide a safe um, distribution of water to the public. And also that would mean that there's less water loss in distribution, because if we are not able to treat the water, we're not going to send it out to compromise our quality standards. Then in times when we have dry season and there's just not enough water to go around, we do have a water rationing plan to ensure that there is fair distribution throughout the system. But we are also cognizant that there are some priority sectors, which include hospitals, schools, and other critical facilities, because it's imperative that we provide to those sectors, so they do get a priority. And we've been working with some other stakeholders, such as the Water Resource Management Agency, the government of St. Lucia, of course, and different community organizations to look into other water security initiatives, and also public awareness and education to the to our customers. Now, we'd just like to speak about some critical projects which are on stream, and particularly those in the north of the island. So earlier this year, we received approval of a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank for approximately $22.8 million US, with the support of the government of St. Lucia, for the replacement of 5 kilometers of the raw water pipelines. So that comes from the John Compton Dam and heads to our primary treatment plant in Cicero, the Theobalds Treatment Plant. And the objective of that project is to increase the volume of water which goes to the treatment plant, and therefore increase our supply to our major customers in the north and the domestic customers as well. This project will reduce our NRW, so that's non-revenue water. So that's primarily water that comes from the river, but we're not able to put into our water supply and give to our customers. So currently, the designs for that project have been completed, and we are in the process of procuring the services of a consultant who will be doing the supervision of that project. We're aiming to have that completed by the end of the year, and the consultant will support us in the procurement of the contractor, which we hope that entire process to be finished in the first quarter of 2026, to allow work to begin in the second quarter of 2026. Project will take 2 years to complete, and I mean that may seem like a long time, but the design life of these projects are minimum 50 years. So it's just I don't want to say a drop in the bucket, but when you look at the time scale, it's something that we have to appreciate is necessary and will give long-term benefits. Then we have the upgrades to the northern pipeline. So we completed the first phase, which was from the Monjiro Gap up to Bonter, Rodney Heights area. And we're going to be continuing that pipeline from where we stopped that section and go up to the Groseley Gap. So we already have the pipes and fittings procured, and through the Caribbean Development Bank for funding for that. And okay, so Bank of St. Lucia, all right. And we are in the process of selecting a contractor who will be doing the installation of that pipeline. So once that pipeline is completed, we would be receiving an increase on our pressures to the north, and also a reduction in the amount of water which is lost through leaks on that line. So just to give you a breakdown of the timelines for that, in August we received the expressions of interest for the contractors. Then we did a short list of the contractors which we thought were most capable to undertake these works. Currently, we're going through the tender process for the selection of the contractors with the intent to award the contracts in November, and then we're looking at a 4-month construction period from December 2025 and completion in March 2026.
I think we had a very comprehensive presentation by Mr. Norville, and I think all of us here have a clearer understanding, or at least we would hope so, of the challenges faced by the company and the way forward, how we intend to secure St. Lucia's future as it relates to the water sector. Okay, so first of all, the pipe did not burst in Rodney Bay. I think that's the first clarification that we need to make. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Infrastructure was doing some preparatory works, I would say, for the new highway which is going to be constructed. They used a piece of machinery, I think is a bore, a drill, and they unfortunately punctured our pipe. So it was not a defect in the pipe because, as Mr. Norville would have explained earlier, that section of the pipe is relatively new. That section of the pipe has recently been replaced. So it was not a rupture or a damage. It was actually an accident by the Ministry of Infrastructure. It was very unfortunate, but we were able last night up until after 11, Mr. King, to complete the repair, and it was successful. Our hardworking team members were out there. They responded very quickly, and we're very happy to restore the water supply to the north. As it relates to your question about the 48 hours, I think you were referring to the day prior to that, where we had a rupture. That was a rupture on the raw water pipeline down in the Millet-Vanna area. So that rupture has also been repaired successfully. So yes, the 48-hour period is over, and we are happy to restore water to St. Lucia, well, to the north of the island.
WASCO has various platforms through which we communicate to the public. The recent incident of the rupture was an emergency situation. You would recall in February, March of this year, we had a planned shutdown where I think we addressed about 30 leaks or so on the system at the time, and we did give at least a week's notice in that situation. What we had over the last couple of days was an emergency situation. So in an emergency situation, we can really only give 24 hours notice, yeah? As it relates to the fact that we have low pressures, we've had low pressures from the dry season. And if you really think about it, this September gone has been the driest on record in the history of St. Lucia. I'm sure all of you would recall growing up, you have a lot of rain in September. School has reopened, but you have to stay home because of some impending storm or what have you. And this has been the driest on record. So we haven't had a lot of rainfall. So we've had a lot of low pressures again, and we cannot produce as much as we used to. And Mr. Vidal is here as well. He's our PTQ manager. He can explain that a little further if you want further explanation on that. So we've had low pressures, but what we have been doing is trucking to the various communities, the hardest hit communities. We've actually had a town crier go into those communities to let people know that the trucks are on there. As a matter of fact, up till last night about 10 p.m., there was a truck in Emerald Heights. Yeah? The guys didn't leave until after 10 minutes to 11. So we have been doing it. We have been trucking. We're using our trucks. We're using trucks from the private contractors to get the water to people in the hardest hit communities, those at the higher elevations and the extreme ends of the network. So we have been doing all of what we can. But we have been urging citizens as well to do their part. Get storage. I speak to some of my neighbors and some of the people in the community in Grand Riviere, one of the hardest hit, and they will say to you, yeah, but I want water in my tap. But here is the reality of the situation. We all want water in the tap, but we have to help ourselves. Wherever there is pressure in your taps, you store. You get additional buckets, you get an additional tank, you store. So that when we have a situation that we've had in the last couple of weeks, you have something to turn to. yes. But what we find is that a lot of people are very demanding of us in terms of, I'm not even sure how to put it, to get water into the taps. But the reality of the situation is that we are not able to do so in a very consistent way, which is why we ask people to help themselves. But again, the emergency situation that we were dealing with was exactly that, an emergency situation. And had we not done that, and I think the gentleman here can give you an idea of the extent of that leak, if we had not done that, we would have been in an even worse situation. And I think it was Ali who said so in our last shutdown. The situation has to get worse before it can get better. We have to address the leaks on the system, because the fact is we have aging infrastructure. There is absolutely nothing we can do about it. But now that we've had the funding, we've secured the funding to do just that, to remedy those problems, you will see a change over the next few months, over the next few years. You will definitely see a change, an improvement in the service reliability of WASCO. I hope that answered your question.
Because Jerry, you spoke about our communication with the public, but the public also needs to realize that, you know, we as a management team, our staff, our support managers who are here with us, we are human and we are real. So the harsh criticism, especially the latest ones where they actually are calling into our control room and abusing our staff, it is not something that we take very lightly. We understand the plight of every citizen that is without a supply, which is why we are doing everything we can. Entire team, from line staff to management staff to the guys out there in the field, everybody is working assiduously to ensure that we supply. We may not be able to supply via pipeline because, of course, we are faced with a climate change crisis. It's not a crisis that is only in St. Lucia. We have other Caribbean islands that are facing the exact same things that we are. But I really would like to appeal to the public to really realize, you see all of us here today, we're wearing pink. We're wearing pink to support breast cancer awareness because we are real people. We have staff members who sit with us and come to work every day who are recovering from breast cancer. Nobody knows what they're going through. So to call our staff and to use the kind of obscenities, that we do not take very lightly. We're very saddened by it, and we would like to appeal to the public to realize that we are human too.
Well, the major one that we had the emergency shutdown for was successfully repaired. But what I must say is that this 5-kilometer section of pipeline that Mr. Norville spoke about earlier, it still has a number of leaks. The way this thing works is that every time you do a significant amount of repairs, the small innocuous ones starts developing and it starts getting worse. But it also, when it reaches a point where, listen, we have to do something about this, this is when that we actually go into a shutdown mode to get this resolved. But it's not only until we have replaced the entire 5 kilometers will we say we have a relief from those leaks. So it's going to continue until that pipeline is replaced. It's just a matter of time before we get another one again.
You know, the tourism sector is booming in St. Lucia, and we know that the season is going to open sometime late October into November. So Mr. King and I, we were discussing with Mr. Anthony, and we're hopefully going to schedule that for the second week in November. We want to ensure that we are prepared, that the public knows that we're coming with this one, so that persons will be able to fill up. Ms. Stevens will be able to provide them with, you know, all of the information prior to the shutdown. Our communication is going to take various forms. We're going to be using the town criers. We're going to be using social media, radio, television. And this is the difference, I think, between a planned maintenance and a disruption. We go to bed one night, and the next morning we wake up and guess what? The pipeline has erupted. What are we going to do? We have to shut down to repair it. If we don't shut down to repair it, the situation will get worse and customers will just be without the supply. So
what are the remaining affected areas, and how soon can those areas get some sort of...
Okay, well, the higher elevations, and we also need to be cognizant, people, of the fact that this pipeline although it serves 58% of our customer base, it only serves the area from Millet to Cap Estate. So we have a wider variety of zones. We have Ancillary that has water, Dennery has water, Miku, Viewfort, all of these areas, Labrie, all of these areas are being fed constantly with a supply of water. So for your question, we have the higher elevations, Mr. Gillard, and those higher elevations are obviously going to take longer because the pressures have to build up. We have Piat, we have Degazon, we have Montsepa, we have further north, Carolee, Monnier, we have Cap Estate. So all of those areas are the areas which are they always seem to suffer because it takes longer for the water to get to them. Yeah.
The last time we met at the agency, one of the agencies, the plant shut down.
Right.
We spoke of the Theobalds Treatment Plant project, and I believe what also was spoken about was the desilting of the dam. Where are we with that?
The desilting of the dam project currently is not one of our major projects that we have identified for this strategic direction of the company at this time. It's not that it is on a back burner. We are discussing it, but it's not a project that is ongoing. Whereas the others, we have sought financing for them, and we're well on our way with the others. We have not really sought financing for that project as yet.
Okay, well, in any water network, you will realize that there is a supply side, which is from the WASCO side, and the demand side from the customer side. We are acutely aware of the increase in demand, especially with Airbnbs. What we have been trying to do over there is that any loss of water we identify, we as quickly as possible we go to repair those, because any water is lost is water that cannot get to customers. So on our non-revenue side, we tackle this with all what we can. The yields at our 3 sources at Babono have gone down by 50%. 50% is a big number when it comes to the amount of water that you are not able to abstract. So we have lost that just because of the lack of rainfall.
Yep.
I just hope it rains pretty soon, because if it doesn't, we'll be in a serious situation in that.
Thank you again,
And-
ladies
yes.
and gentlemen, and the press. We
Yes.
appreciate you coming, and we really hope that this